Greetings, greetings. I see a lot of people starting to come on here. Greetings. Revolutionary greetings. You know I'm going to give y'all a little bit of time to come up on here so we can get it cracking. Revolutionary greetings. Share this live, please, as you start to come on here. And I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to go live on all my social media sites. So I'm just going to get a Facebook live, a chance to build up. And then I'm going to go live on my other social media platforms. This is a very important topic today, man. This is an extension. I said I was going to do 3 parts to Western imperialism, because this is the most important education that all freedom-fighting, loving people should be, you know what I'm saying, incorporating into their daily lives, man. If you're a freedom-loving person, freedom fighter, you know what I'm saying, you understand that political education and understanding geopolitics and the whole political dynamic and structure is important. You know what I'm saying? Geopolitics is important. So I promised y'all I was going to do 3 parts to this Western imperialism, so, you know, we can get an understanding on what's going on globally with the national and international struggle. You know what I'm saying? We must understand the international and national struggle of African people, man, new African people, so we can understand what's going on in Africa and what's going on in the Middle East. Because those specific areas on the geopolitical map are important, because those 2 areas, the Middle East and Africa, because, you know, even some people say, you know, the Middle East is really Africa. They just separated it with borders, which is true. You feel me? It was a part of Africa at one point in time, the Middle East. But I'm saying it's important to understand the politics of those 2 regions. You feel me? That continent, period. The African continent, period. And the Middle East. But even more specifically, the Middle East, because that's the main area on the geopolitical map that's in real conflict and turmoil. And people have to understand that that area affects the world. It affects the globe. So you have to understand the conflict that's going on in the Middle East and who's initiating, facilitating the conflict and the turmoil in the Middle East. Because I know a lot of people across the world don't understand what's going on in the Middle East, and it's kind of confusing, and it's chaos, you know what I'm saying? And it's not comprehensible at times on why the Middle East the way it is, and Africa. Because you can't get the Middle East without Africa. You can't get one without the other. They are interconnected as an ecosystem, especially specific with resources. So this is why I need people to, you know, understand the importance of understanding the geopolitical climate going on in those regions, in that continent of Africa and the region of the Middle East. Because if you can understand the Middle East turmoil and the African turmoil, you see what I'm saying, you'll have a better understanding of why, you know, specifically why your countries are going through what they're going through, and what, you know, why the oppression, the genocide, the murder, and all these type of things are manifesting out these conditions inside your country. Because these, especially, you know, a lot of people over here in the Western Hemisphere like to detach themselves from what's going on in Africa and what's going on the continent of Africa and the so-called area called the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people in the Western Hemisphere is, you know what I'm saying, colonized not to understand what's going on the continent of Africa and what's going on in the Middle East, and who's facilitating all this crisis and conflict in Africa and in the Middle East, which is Western imperialism, which is the Western powers, period. You see what I'm saying? And the most popular, who are the most popular of the Western Empire and the Western imperialism? Who's initiating Western imperialism that's causing all this inhumane oppression that's going on the African continent and in the Middle East? Those main facilitators and initiators of Western imperialism are the most popular empires in this age and time, in the 21st, 22nd century. Who are the most popular out of the Western Hemisphere that's aligned with the Western Hemisphere? The United States of America, Britain, Israel, Saudi Arabia. Those are the main four of the Western powers, the Western imperialist powers. You have to understand these empires, because once you understand these empires, then you will understand why things are going the way they're going in Africa and in the Middle East. Because if you do not understand the Western imperialist powers, the main relevant empires of today in the 21st century, 22nd century, Israel, United States of America, Saudi Arabia, and Britain, you cannot separate those empires. Those empires are the closest empires who are in conjunction with the oligarchy. You see what I'm saying? In order to understand who the oligarchy uses, you see what I'm saying? And who the oligarchy is, using as the, controllers of the chessboard of domination and control of the world, you have to understand the four Western empires, the most popular empires who are in conjunction together, who works together, and who keeps other countries in control. They police the world. You have to understand this. You see what I'm saying? This is why the Middle East and Africa is in so much turmoil, because you got four empires controlling that continent and that region. You have to understand that. Whether you down with the United States of America, whether you're cool with Israel, whether you're cool with Britain, whether you're cool with Saudi Arabia, none of that matters to me. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand and look at these things from a non-biased political consciousness. You have to understand the chessboard with a political, non-biased consciousness. You see what I'm saying? You have to understand the historical material world. Who's doing the oppressing, and who are the oppressed, and who are the victims and the pawns of that chessboard game of world domination. You have to understand that. You see what I'm saying? No matter, I don't care what your beliefs is. I don't care who you like or what you're down with or what country you side with or what country you support or what presidents you support. It's not about that. It's bigger than all that. Because you have to understand, is what we say in scientific theory. You have to understand the cause and the effect in order to understand the historical material world. There's a cause and there's effect. There's rulers and there's people who's being ruled. You see what I'm saying? You have to understand that. You have to understand. I don't care who you favor out of the four imperialist powers. I don't care who you looking forward to, who you want to seek help from. None of that matters at this point. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that you get a political, social consciousness of the international world struggle on the chessboard. You have to understand that. And I'm going live on all my media sites right now. All my social media sites, I'm now live. And this video is particularly coming from a revolutionary Pan-Africanist African worldview of the international national struggle of African people understanding the conflict of the world. This is what this video is about. The Middle East and Africa has to be in conflict for the Western imperialist powers to stay in control. Let me say that again. The Middle East and Africa has to stay in conflict, internal conflict, in order for the Western imperialist powers to maintain control and reap all the benefits of all the oppressed peoples of the world. Let me state that again. The Middle East and Africa has to stay in conflict internally in order for the external Western imperialist powers to stay in control of the world and to stay in control of those regions, Africa, Middle East. And why is that? Why does the Western imperialist powers and their allies have to stay in control of Africa and the Middle East and to keep those two areas in conflict internally? Why do they have to do that? It goes back to three important things that you must understand as Africans and New Africans. One, they have to stay in control of those regions, and they have to keep those regions in conflict in order for the imperialist powers to control the resources. The most important thing that you have to learn as an African when you're developing your political consciousness, you have to understand and understand resources. Resources is what's running the world. Resources. Needs. You need resources in order to survive. You need resources in order to develop civilizations. You need resources to maintain nationhood. Without resources, there's no nationhood. You see what I'm saying? There's no nationhood. There's no technological advancement. There's no decent housing, clothing, food, and things that are necessities for civilizations to thrive and to survive. Resources. It's just unfortunately, the Western imperialist powers are greedy. They want all the resources. The United States of America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Britain wants to control all the world global resources. Greed. This is what an empire becomes. An empire becomes an empire when the empire controls the world community and the world community resources. Empires. You have to understand that. This is important. Empires. Empires develop into empires based off control of resources and control of people. Feel me? This is where slavery comes from. If anybody wants to know why slavery even came into existence into humanity, you have to understand why slavery came into existence in humanity. It came into existence in humanity based off global empires controlling land, resources, people. Because once you conquer the land and get the resources, now you need people to cultivate the resources. You, me, all people across the world who are laboring every day. You wake up and go to work every day, 9 to 5. And even back into ancient times and ancient antiquity, there has always been laborers and people who control the labor. Always. This is throughout history. Throughout the chronology, the tiers of history. Because history is the clock that we must study in order to understand now, the presence. So now as you look at the chronological clock of oppression, labor, imperialism, colonialism, you will understand those dynamics. Has always existed, even in African tribal history. Even during African tribal history, these dynamics were present. It's just how these people handled that was different than what you see today with the four imperialist powers of the Western Empire. You see what I'm saying? It's a difference on how it transformed and transcended through history. As social history started to develop, political social history started to develop, things started to change. because Western imperialist powers got greedy. Africans had greed amongst them internally during their reign, during their empires, but it wasn't the same as the Western imperialist powers who seen what the African empires were doing, because you can't get the Western empires without the African empires. So the Western empires seen what the African empires had. This is why you had the Arabic imperialist period of slavery. Then you have the European imperialistic period of slavery. All these things come out of land, resources, controlling the people. It's all about controlling the people, period. The land, people, resources. Africa and Middle East has the most resources in the world. These are the land of resources. I'm just trying to give y'all a clock. I'm trying to work this clock so you can understand. The Middle East, the so-called Middle East, because there's no such thing as the Middle East. The Middle East is a colonial subject terminology with borders. Borders are aspects of imperialism. The Europeans and the imperialist Arabs at the time, who also fell victim to European borderlism, imperialism, when they started to cut up Africa and when they started to cut up the Middle East based on land, resources, slaves, people. You feel me? So these borders are really invisible borders, just like the empire of the United States of America. Every state, 50 states that you see in America are invisible borders. They don't exist. There's no such thing as borders. Borders are manifestation of slavery, economic slavery, domination by empires. This is something you have to understand. There's no such thing as borders. Till the Europeans came around and started to dominate and conquer everybody and cut up land masses based on resources. You still got to understand, resources is the ultimate facilitator of conflict. Now, once they split up the borders, and I'm coming into more modernized time, we coming out of slavery, I'm coming into modern time. Once they cut up the land and the resources, you had empires who started to ally with each other to, so they can, share the domination. This comes out of these imperialist oligarchies, these royal families and oligarchies. You got the royal oligarchy of Saudi Arabia. You have the royal oligarchy of Israel. You have the royal oligarchy of Britain and the United States of America, who are brothers. This is something you have to keep understanding when I'm dropping this political education. The United States of America and Britain are brother countries. They are family. They are really one empire. Because a lot of you get it confused. I see a lot of Africans who want to try to separate the United States of America from Britain. You cannot separate the father from the son. The United States of America is the son of Britain. Quote, the reason why we all speak English. Where did English come from? English comes from the imperialist empire of the oligarch of Britain. The United States of America is a manifestation out of Britain. For those who don't know that. So you cannot, one example, I don't want to get off the topic, but one example. When you come to the United States of America and you go to Canada, but specifically when you come to the United States of America and you go to Virginia, you go to these different areas in these invisible border states, these illusionary border states, you will see counties, buildings, statues named after British royal oligarchies. Bloodlines. This is where you get Prince William County, all these type of things. When you come to D.C., Maryland, Virginia, all these areas, you go to Canada. Most of Canada is named after the British Royal Empire. For you the people who don't know that, those Canadian names are named after Royal Britain oligarchs. The state of Virginia is named after a Queen British oligarch, Virginia Queen Elizabeth. Get it? Oh, Virginia is a representation of the Empire of Britain. Not to get off subject, just to make my point, is the fact that you cannot separate empires. Empires can split, but these empires are still internally connected. Ecosystems of imperialism. Period. Britain and the United States of America are one. Let's not get that confused. Don't get it confused. So when you see people like me, who are new African revolutionary nationalists, scientists, pointing out the contradictions of the empire of the United States of America, I need you to understand that I'm talking about Britain, Israel, and Saudi Arabia all at the same time. The four heads of Western imperialism. Because a lot of y'all don't seem to understand that Saudi Arabia came into existence in the Arabic region with the help of the British Empire and the United States of America Empire. Saudi Arabia wouldn't be so dominant in that region if it wasn't from the backing of Western European powers. And like I'm always telling you, don't take my word, research it. Get your political education on. Get your political conscience developed. So you can understand the world and can teach this to your babies so your babies can understand how the world operates so they won't get indoctrinated and misled by the CIA media that's controlled by the Central Intelligence Agency. And also I'm going to bring in, because something else I'm going to talk about also during this live is the fact that I'm going to talk a little bit about CIA and the MI6, and also the Nigerian Central Intelligence Agency that they have. That's all connected. None of these agencies of counterintelligence, Central Intelligence, are not divided. The British Central Intelligence Agency is connected to the United States CIA Central Intelligence. They all running together to help these empires control those regions and to control Africa and the Middle East and to keep these proxy wars going. See, this is what you got to understand. The internal conflicts that you see going on in the Middle East and on the African continent are nothing but mass internal confusions and chaos initiated by the CIA, America, MI6, the British Empire, and also the Central Intelligence Agencies of Saudi Arabia and other African countries, nations, and states who have their same Central Intelligence Agencies connected to the main Central Intelligence Agencies of the Empire of the United States of America. The CIA is the biggest Central Intelligence Agency on the globe. The other ones that come out of it, like the ones that come out of Israel, the one that comes out of Saudi Arabia, the one that comes out of other regions in Africa, are all connected to the Central Intelligence Agency of the CIA. The main controllers of the conflicts, proxy wars inside these areas. See, all the confusion you see going inside these countries of Africa, all the death, the genocide, the murder. You got certain subgroups, ethnic groups killing and murdering each other all across Africa. You got these proxy fake Islamic extremist groups who are not truly Islamic extremist groups. They are proxies, meaning they are pawns. They don't even adhere to what they professing and manifesting and portraying to the world. These are not real Muslim people. These are not real Islamic faith followers. They are really political proxies, groups. who are doing work on behalf of these intelligence agencies. You have to understand the central intelligence agencies. This is how you will understand the world. I'm kicking game to you. I'm kicking facts. If you can study and learn the CIA, the MI6, Israel's Central Intelligence Agency, Saudi Arabia's Central Intelligence Agencies, once you can master these agencies and see what they do in the world, what is their job in the world, why are they the most powerfulest organizations in the world, once you figure that out, you will figure out what's going on in the world. And you will understand why these four Western imperialist powers always stay in power and also are dominating Africa and the Middle East. They're playing chess. It's a chess game to control the regions with the most resources. The Middle East, Africa. Period. That's all you need to know. This is elementary education, people. This ain't education that's some kind of mathematical confusion that I can't understand it. No, this is simple political education. Very simple. And you can rewind this video so you can study it and understand what I just said and go through those steps as you're researching. Because my thing is, I'm only here to make you think. I'm only here to make you research. Research before you put out biased opinions. Research before you put out wrong information. The most important of it all is this research for your own political consciousness. So you won't be in this illusionary zombie state of colonialism. So now when you get up and you see CNN News, you see the Western Empowered News, because what news medias control the world? Western empires, medias run the world. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera TV, Russian TV, all these empires of Europeans, it's their media, not our media. You see what I'm saying? So they dictate the information. The CIA, they dictate the information that they want the masses to absorb. And most of that information throughout the decades and centuries has been brainwashing and colonial information to keep you a colonial subject, colonized, confused, psychologically confused, to make your reality seem that these people are doing what's right for humanity, when in total opposite, they're doing wrong to humanity. They're causing death, disease, and conflicts on the opposite side of the illusionary historical material realm. They're doing the opposite. They're not going to Africa and helping humanity. They're not going to the Middle East helping humanity. Because if that was the case, then why are these regions and continents, countries with the most resources are the most undeveloped of the Western empires? Why are the Western empires more technologically developed than the places where they're getting the resources from? Use your mind. How did the United States of America become this gigantic monster in the world of an empire? How did the United States of America become the most wealthiest nation on earth when this continent doesn't have resources? Use your mind. The United States of America don't have oil like the Middle East. The United States of America doesn't have oil like Africa. Israel doesn't have oil like Africa or the Middle East. Even though Israel is considered to be in the Middle East, they don't have the resources like Syria, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia. It can go on. Now, do you notice it? Do you see the difference? These countries don't have the resources of the other countries that they call evil. Israel calls all the Arabic countries evil. But Israel don't have no resources. Think about it. I'm just here to make you think. Think about it. Israel don't have no resources. But every country in that region that has resources is an Arabic country. How is that? And every day on the news, who does Israel call evil? The Muslim countries. So you're trying to tell me people who are trying to defend their country and trying to keep their resources for their own people and the own development of their own countries, you trying to tell me you calling them evil when they're trying to protect their resources so they can develop their countries? That's evil? When? Because I'm pretty sure you put those people in Israel in reverse. Because look, everybody in Israel is not colonized. Trust me, it's people in Israel who know the truth. It's oppressed people in Israel who know the truth on what Israel is doing to other countries also. They know Israel is a puppet country that's in cahoots and aligned with Britain and the United States of America. This is why the United States of America and Britain always run to the aid of Israel. Have you noticed that? Israel has no resources. Israel has no oil. No nothing. You have to understand that, people. And even before that, Israel had no land. Think about that. Israel didn't become a nation state till 1946 to 1949. It wasn't even a country at first. But with the help of the Western imperialist powers and Saudi Arabia, now Israel has a country. It has land now. And it booted off the indigenous people of the land, the Palestinians. Booted them off the land. Took their land. Like imperialists do. Took their land. Still taking their land. Now, it's so ironic, it's so terroristic that they pushed Palestinians out of their own land. Palestinians not even recognized as a nation state. How about that? Israel wasn't even a nation state at first, remember? Israel wasn't a nation state at first. Palestine was. United States of America, Britain, and Saudi Arabia booted the Palestinians off of their land, took their nationhood, took their sovereignty, and said, you're not a country no more, Palestinians. You're beneath us. You're beneath us. You're not a country no more. Until this day, they're still fighting to be a nation state again. Palestine. Still fighting to be a nation state today. I'm trying to fix this camera over here. Hold on. How about that? See how they reversed the whole thing? This is how imperialism works. See how they reversed it? They came and conquered the land, didn't tell those people you're no longer nationals, you're no longer a nation, you're no longer a state. Now this is Israel land, now they're a nation, now they're a state, now the Palestinians are fighting to become a nation state again. Hypocrisy, like the great Baba Malcolm X stated. Hypocrisy. This is all facts. Just like the same way that the British Empire and all the European empires that colluded with them to come over to the Western Hemisphere and kill off all the indigenous nations that was on this land. Now they're not nation and states no more. Well, you know, to the European globalists and the elitists and the oligarchies and the world courts, now the indigenous nations of America are not considered nation states no more legally. See how they reversed the whole game? There were nation and states first. But once the empires come conquer land, the settlers come conquer land, now the oppressed people on the land are no longer nation states. This is why African people, no matter where you are, Africa, Caribbean islands, South America, Europe, no matter where you are, listen to what's coming out of my mouth. You are nationals. You were nationals first. You were nation states first. We were the people that created nations. African black people. You are nationalists by science. You are nationalists by birth. You are nationalists by origin. We are the first people of any of that. Those wasn't tribes. This is something else y'all got to understand. The land that all these African ethnic groups sit on with all this oil that these imperialist nations, China, United States of America, France, Germany, all these imperialist countries that invaded Africa and took the land and took the resources and took the oil. Those people that were on those lands were nation states before Europeans and Arabs even knew what a nation state concept was. Facts. The African empires were nation states. The subgroups, the ethnic groups, Igbo, Yoruba, Ashanti, Akan, Ga, Iwe, all these great civilizations were nation states first. They had the land. They had the resources. They had the political body, the political nation state concepts first. Then they come through history after slavery, then turn it around, colonize you, take your land, take your name, take your nation and state, and then try to say you're inferior. See the chessboard of Western imperialism? I'm trying to get all African people. You must focus on Western imperialism. Everything else is a distraction. Religion is a distraction. Those internal conflicts in the Middle East and on the African continent are distractions. But I will tell you this, please defend yourself. Self-defense is a human right. Defend yourself from any external violence or any external genocide. Protect yourself. No matter who they look like. They can be black, white, yellow, brown. Protect your nation state. Protect your tribes. Protect your peoples by any means necessary. But understand, there's a battery in the back of this internal conflict. What's the battery in the back of this internal conflict? Western imperialism. Western imperialism. While we kill each other, genocide each other in the Middle East, the Arabic countries kill each other off, the Christian countries kill each other off, the Africans in Africa kill each other off. Guess who's in the background reaping all the benefits? The imperialist powers. The oligarchy. Sitting in the background reaping all the benefits of your labor, your land, your resources, and ultimately death. Because every time one of you die, and every time one of y'all kill each other, it's a victory for Western imperialism. A victory for Western imperialism. All these proxy wars you see, they're supposed to be so-called based on religion. Oh, the Muslims and the Christians hate each other. This and the third and all that time. Where you think that's being facilitated from? What's the cause of that? Because you got to understand, they use religion to take you out of your political social consciousness. They use religion to take you out of your political, international, geopolitical consciousness. While the whole time, these Western imperialist powers are playing from the playbook of political, geopolitical consciousness. They can care less with religion. They don't care nothing about religion. Let those drug head, religious relics kill each other. This is how Western imperialism thinks. Let those religious fanatics kill each other. Facts. Catholic Church, prime example. The Catholic Church controls religion. How about that? You wouldn't even think that. The Catholic Church controls religion. All religions. Islam, Judaism, Jehovah's Witness, Abrahamic religions are all controlled by the Catholic Church. You didn't think that. The Catholic Church is a political organization, not a religious organization. The Catholic Church is controlled and ran by the oligarchy. How about that? How about that? The Catholic Church alone has so much money and profits off of slavery, stealing resources, that they can end world hunger tomorrow. Facts. Facts. The Catholic Church has so much money, resources, from using the Western imperialist powered nations to pillage other countries and nations and states for their resources and land. They can end hunger tomorrow. They can end world homelessness tomorrow. How about that? But these are so professed people who love Jesus Christ. They love God. But guess what God they love? Gold, oil, drugs. G-O-D. Gold, oil, drugs. Western imperialism. Period. Western imperialism. Now, let me move on into this segment. Let me move on into this aspect of it. How does the Western imperialist empires, how do they keep control of the conflicts? How do they keep control of the resources in these lands when they're not even from those lands? How does the United States of America dominate every country on this planet with the US dollar? How? How is this possible? I know many Africans got to understand. How do the United States empire control the world, control resources with the piece of paper fiat dollar that's not worth nothing? A piece of paper is not even worth more than gold. Gold is the real currency of the earth, people. You have to understand, this is one of the original currencies of African indigenous people. Gold, silver, and all metals. Metal was the original currency of the world. How did the imperialist powers maneuver and snake and switch gold out for a dollar, a piece of paper? They did it through conquer, murder, genocide. Now, the international trade of goods, resources, contraband is dominated by the Western powers. How about that? Every country that's suffering some of the most economic crises, oppression in the world, poverty, disease education, psychological, slavery, damage mentally. Why is it like that? Why is it like that? It's like that because the imperialist powers have conquered these people. They have conquered these lands. They have conquered the resources with the dollar. How about that? A piece of paper. A piece of paper. How does $1 is more valuable than a Nigerian dollar? Or a Saudi, not even a Saudi Arabia because they part of the imperialist power, but an Iran dollar. Do you know how much money that you have to equivalent an Iranian dollar to a US dollar? That's hypocrisy. That's hypocrisy. How does one piece of paper by one empire outvalues other nation states' currency? How is that? It's all paper. It's not even the original currency. It's all paper. And soon as those nations that are being oppressed by the United States fiat dollar recognize this and understand that, no, we can't keep selling these Western empires our resources through their means of their dollar. No, we're gonna kick your dollar out. We're gonna separate out of your reserves. We're gonna pull our money out of your banks. We're gonna pull them out your federal banks and federal reserves. We're going to take back our money. Soon as these nations do that, what does the Western empires do? They go into those lands, kill the leader, take the land, take the oil, take the resources. Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi. Understand this. They're terrorists now. Soon as people want to take back their resources, they're terrorists. How about that? Even Africans. Wake up, Africans. On the African continent, wake up. Because you're going to be called a terrorist. Soon as you want to step up and take back your resources, take back your oil, take back your silk, take back your cotton, take back your fabrics, take back your food, take back your everything of that country that you want to control and you want to capitalize off it and it's yours, they're coming to take your shit and they're coming to kill you. Period. Soon as you pull your money out of their reserves and you pull your money out of their banks and all this mechanisms of colonialism, once you take back your currency, they're coming to kill you. They're coming to take your land. They're coming to take your country. Every time one of these oppressed third world nations take their currency back, what happens to the leader? What happens to that region? Why is Libya one of the worstest countries on the earth right now? Libya is a third world hellhole. And Libya has some of the most resources on the planet. Oil, all types of resources in Libya. But they don't control it. Who controls it? The Western imperialist powers control Libya. Who controls Iraq? Why are the Iraq people fed up now? The Iraq people wants the United States of America out of their country because it's not about, even though it's a major part of it that they killed General Salame, but the main reason they want the United States of America out of their country because they're tired of the United States of America controlling their resources. Revolution, resistance. Resistance is not evil. Understand that, African people. You resisting imperialism, you resisting Western countries is not terrorism. Actually, it's good terrorism because you're in your good mind. You're in your right mind. I want to self-preserve my people. I want to control my resources. I don't want no foreign country controlling my people, my land, my resources. That's good terrorism. That's self-defense terrorism. Period. The only thing that's sad about all this is the victims. The citizens, the civilians, the innocent kids, the innocent mothers, fathers, civilians who not even a part of none of this get murdered and killed every day in all these third world countries of just being collateral damage is the saddest thing of it all. Even kids and children, wife, mothers, fathers were murdered in that drone strike on General Salami. They ain't gonna put that in the news. There were innocent bystanders that died in the drone strike on General Salami. This is what Western Empire media don't tell y'all. Period. Period. They don't tell y'all this. What is the moving on into that was back then, but how does these Western imperialist powers keep control of the land and the resources now? How do they do it in modern 21st, 22nd century? What is the strategy that they use the most now to keep these regions in conflict? Sanctions. Understand what a sanction is. When you hear these politicians on TV, in the news, in the media, talking about, oh yeah, we're going to throw sanctions on that country. We're going to throw sanctions on Iraq. We're going to throw sanctions on Iran. We're going to throw sanctions on Venezuela. We're going to throw sanctions on Haiti. We're going to throw sanctions on African countries. We're going to throw sanctions. What is sanction? Sanctions are economic terrorism. Sanctions are economic terrorism. It's a modern day control mechanism. Put you in your place. We're going to sanction you. How can another foreign entity sanction another foreign entity? How is that? How is it possible? And you notice the only four countries that sanction other countries are who? America. Britain, Israel, Saudi Arabia are always sanctioning every other third world country. How is that? How is it possible if these people are not colluding together to control the world globally? How? How do they do it? What are sanctions? The U.S. and the EU, European Union, passes laws to ban, block, restrict trade to a specific country, group, or individuals when they do not comply with the U.S., EU foreign policy. Let me state that again. What are sanctions? Sanctions are when the U.S. and the European Union pass laws to ban, block, or restrict trade to a specific country, group, or individuals when they do not comply with the U.S. and European Union foreign policy. That is economic terrorism, because now these countries that they put this noose around, when they put sanctions on these countries, once they put that tight grip on these countries cannot use their resources to capitalize off them. They can't trade. They can't trade their goods, their contraband, their resources, their agriculture, their fabrics, their metals, everything that they have that they need to make money off. They can't do it because now you got the United States of America, Britain, Israel, Saudi Arabia with guns out telling you, you better not do this, you better not do that, or we're coming in your country and we're going to slap you, we're going to punish you, we're going to put sanctions on you. You better not. You better not. You better comply. You better comply. It's just like a slave owner whipping his slave. You better not do that. You better not do nothing. You better not pull out the Federal Reserves. You better not try to jerk us out of this trade. We're trading with the U.S. dollar. You better not try to manipulate us out of this money, oil, and resources, or we're going to slap you with sanctions. We're going to slap you with sanctions. Period. We're going to slap you with sanctions immediately. This is how they hold a grip on the Middle East. This is how they hold a grip on Africa. This is how they hold a grip on the Caribbean islands, nations. This is how they hold a grip on South America. This is how they hold a grip on Venezuela. This is the same thing that's going on in Venezuela right now. This is why Haiti is in an uprising right now. They're starving. They're starving because they don't control the trade market. The national and international trade market is what makes your country thrive. If you cannot control your resources and make money off your resources with your own money, your economy is going to inflate and your nation is going to be in depletion. Learn the economic trade system so you can understand how global imperialism works. Once they slap that sanction on these nations, they immediately start to inflate. Their economy inflates. And when it inflates, poverty is now present. Hunger is now present. Death, murder, violence is now present. If your nation state can't make money, how are the people going to survive? If your nation state can't control their own currency, can't have their own national federal bank, if they can't capitalize off this hard labor and work that their country economies build up, and they cannot use it to the benefit of their own citizens, what do you expect that's going to happen when they can't do that? You're going to see everything you see broadcasted to the world on your cell phone, news media, every day. Death, hunger, disease, murder. Poverty. Poverty. Sanctions are evil. Sanctions are illegal. Learn international law. Get you a black law book. Get you an international law book. Learn the international laws. Learn the constitutions. Learn everything that you have to learn about governmental structure. Today, black people, teach your kids. Teach your kids about international law. Teach your kids about international trade. So they won't be confused zombies. So they would not be blind to the world. Issues, conflicts. Let them know what poverty is. Let them know what creates poverty. So when it comes on the TV screen, you ain't got to be sitting in front of the TV screen and like in a dumb zombie world and trying to keep that away from your kids. No, bring your kids to the forefront. And look here, son. Look here, daughter. This is why that is happening in this country. This is why this is doing that. Sanctions. Continuing on, what is sanctions? When currency are devalued and inflated, when sanctions are leveled internationally, credit ratings tank. Countries are pressured to stop doing business with targeted countries. Let me say that again. Currencies are devalued and inflated. I just told you that. When sanctions are alleviated, international credit ratings tank. And countries are pressured to stop doing business with targeted countries. This is where the conflicts come from. What are the first sectors? I just told y'all this. What are the first sectors that are infected by sanctions? The first sectors affected are generally medicines, cost of food, power, water treatment, and essential human needs. Let me say that again. What are the first things affected when a country's sanctioned? The first sectors affected are generally medicines, cost of food, power, water treatment, and other essential human needs. This is why when you see wars, conflicts, and things of that nature start to go on, is the fact that that country has been sanctioned. The economy has inflated. Even for you new Africans and blacks here in America, you wonder why the cost of food goes up, gas goes up. Blame your nation. Blame your government, because they're in another land causing mass economic terrorism. If you live in America, if you live in Britain, if you live in Israel, if you live in Saudi Arabia, blame your government. Your government is causing that. When you see a kid in Haiti eating mud pies, blame your country. When you see kids in Africa with flies all in their face, and they're eating dirt, and they're drinking water out the mud, blame the four imperialist powers. They control the trade. They control the resources. Blame them. Stop being zombies and stop being dumb to what your government is doing to other countries. It's sickening to see people take up for their own country when they know their country is doing wrong to other third world nations. It's sad. It's ludicrous. It's sick. Because your country controls this shit with the dollar, fiat, paper. If these countries could control their own resources, you wouldn't see those images plastered across your screen, people. Africa should be the most dominant, profound continent in this realm. But they're not. It's America. How is the continent with the most resources at the bottom of the ladder? How about that? How is the continent with the most resources at the bottom of the map? Think about that. Think about that. Moving along, sanctions violate international law. Key thing you have to understand, sanctions, whenever you hear the media or these crooked politicians mention sanctions, automatically let that alarm you. Let that wake up your political social consciousness to be like, hold up, sanctions? Why are they sanctioning? Why they putting sanctions on that nation? What are they doing? What are they doing that for? That's a violation of international law. Automatically go get the international law book. Go get the international laws manuscripts and read it so you can know when a country is violating international law on sovereign lands. When America killed General Salame, that was a violation of international law on another sovereign nation's land. It was illegal. It was a crime. Go get the UN Charter. Another thing I have to throw in there. Go get the UN Charter and study the UN Charter. Teach it to your babies. Y'all quick to scream, oh, I'm a citizen of this. I'm a citizen of America. I'm a citizen of that. But you don't even teach your kids on what it means to be a citizen. A citizen has to be politically, socially, economically conscious. Political education is the most important education in the history of man and womankind. Teach your kids politics. But first you got to teach yourself politics. Because half of you mothers, fathers don't even have political education. You don't even know what the hell going on in the world. You just go by what the government tell you what's going on. That's an injustice. That's an injustice to your generations. That's an injustice to your family. That's an injustice to the people who took bullets to their neck, to their head. That's an injustice to people that's doing 40 to 50 years for political social justice, political prisoners of war, New African political prisoners of war. That's an injustice to them for you not to know the politics of geopolitics, world politics. It's an injustice to yourself. You're disrespecting yourself in your own struggle because you don't know what the hell is going on. And then you blindly affiliate yourself with imperialism. Whether it's on purpose or by accident, you could be co-signing genocide. Sanctions violate international law, the UN Charter, Geneva, and Nuremberg conventions because they targeting civilians by economic strangulation, creating famines, life-threatening shortages, and economic chaos. Economic chaos is the worst terrorism in humanity existence, scientifically and physically. Economic oppression is the worst oppression in mankind's time. Period. Nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to be starving. Nobody wants to be sitting around trying to figure out where the next meal coming from. No human man or woman wants to live that way. No countries want to feel that way. This is where resistance come from, people. This is when murder and retaliation, assassinations, all these things start to come into play because people are at the edge of their survival. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. Understand that scientifically. Self-preservation of your people is the first law of nature. Every nation and state stands on that law. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. You must self-preserve your people, families, communities, villages, governments. If the government is a people's government, because all governments ain't people's governments. Most people don't control their governments. Just like the United States of America citizens, you do not control the imperialist empire of America. You don't control this government. Get out the zombie world of being a colonial subject. You don't control the American government. The American government controls you. Colonialism. Period. The following countries are, and indeed, afflicted by U.S. sanctions. What are the countries that are feeling the effects of being sanctioned by the empire of the United States of America? Who are these countries? These are the same countries you see in the news every day that's going through turmoil. They're affected. They're in poverty. They're struggling. These countries are Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Sudan, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Burundi, Central African Republic, and parts of the Ukraine and Russia. You notice how many African countries was on that list of UN sanctions? Africans. It's so sad to see Africans on the African continent loving America when America is causing your pain, infliction, hunger, and genocide with proxy wars. There are about 4, 5, 6, 7 African countries sanctioned by the U.S. right now, and you wonder why you're starving? You wonder why you're being murdered by these terroristic proxy groups that are indeed initiated by the CIA and the MI6? Britain and the United States Central Intelligence. You wonder why. You wonder why. You wonder why. The last two most important things on how Western imperialism needs Africa in conflict and needs the Middle East in constant conflict, these last two things that I'm going to talk about are the most important parts of this video and this live. Other ways that they keep these conflicts and things of this nature going on and to keep a tight grip on Africa and the Middle East is through coup d'etats. Coup d'etats. Coup d'etats. Learn what a coup d'etat is. Learn what a coup d'etat is. A coup d'etat manifests out of the sanctions. Or the coup d'etats manifest out of resistance. Coup d'etats manifest out of resistance. Soon as a third world nation or a nation want to take back their resources and want to control their land and politics, this is when the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America or Britain, Saudi Arabia, or Israel send in a coup d'etat. This is when they use the strategy of a coup, overthrow. You must understand this. When a country stands up against the Western imperialist powers, when a nation stands up against the Western imperialist powers, this is when they remove leaders. Saddam, Gaddafi. Those are coup d'etats. Coup d'etats are one of the most horrific things that takes place in Africa today. Patrice Lumumba was a victim of a coup d'etat. Kwame Nkrumah was a victim of a coup d'etat. A Central Intelligence coup d'etat by the United States of America. But I see Africans praising America. America has killed every African leader that has ever arose in your continent that was trying to do right by your people, your nation, your states, and who were trying to free Africa. What happened to every leader that stood up in Africa? He was killed in a coup d'etat. Even in the Middle East, when you see these regimes and these empires in the Middle East of these Arabic countries, they're being thought over. A lot of leaders in the Arabic countries have been overthrown by coup d'etats also. Iran was overthrown by a coup d'etat that was backed by the United States of America in 1953. When they overthrew Musagat. Go look it up. Iran, 1953. The United States of America initiates a coup d'etat on the socialist government of Musagat of Iran. This is where the Iran and the United States conflict originate from. When Musagat wanted to kick America out, when the United States of America, when Musagat and the Iran government did no longer want to be a part of the United States of America controlling their resources, their land, and their trade market, he kicked the puppet Shah out, kicked him out. Musagat kicked out the Shah, ran him out of Iran, took back the people's government of Iran. The American people didn't like it. The British people didn't like it. So they sent in agents and threw a coup d'etat on Musagat, who was a man of the people in Iran, and they kicked him out. A CIA American coup in Iran. This is where the conflict come from. Don't believe none of that other nonsense you see online. The conflict started by America. America pulled a coup d'etat on the Iran government. What is a coup d'etat? A coup d'etat, or simply a coup, is the overthrow of an existing government. Non-democratic means typically it is an illegal, unconstitutional seizure of power by a dictator, the military or political faction. This is what they do, the Central Intelligence Agency and the MI6 of Britain. All these Central Intelligence agencies, this is what they do. They pay off the general of the army, or they send in a political head who they want to be the next leader of that country, and they pull off a military coup d'etat and overthrow the current government and regime that they do not like. That's a government that's resistant to Western imperialism. And the United States, they come and kick them out and put in a puppet. The same thing you see going on in Haiti and Venezuela today. Our prime examples of coup d'etats. What just happened in Bolivia when they overthrew the current Bolivia government that was in place there and ran him out the country. That was a coup d'etat by America. Why is America doing all these bad things in the world, you ask yourselves? Why is it always America committing these coup d'etats and supporting illegal overthrows of sovereign nations and governments? That's terrorism. You got it twisted. United States of America is the real terrorist. How can you go into a foreign sovereign land and kick out their leaders? How can you control their country? How can you control their resources? Open your minds up. That is illegal. It's violation of international law. America is the biggest bully in existence. I don't care who don't like it. You can unfollow me if you don't want the truth. United States of America is the biggest bully in the world, like it or not. These other countries can't come to America and tell them how to run their political system. When have you seen a foreign country ever step foot on the soil of America, Britain, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and tell them people, no, we don't like your leader. We don't like him. Get him out of here. What country have you ever seen do that? Somebody tell me. Show me one example in history. Have you ever seen a foreign government overthrow America? Show me evidence of a government overthrowing Britain. Show me evidence of a country overthrowing Israel. Show me a country that ever overthrew Saudi Arabia. Show me a country that has ever overthrown Western imperialism. The only country that has ever overthrown Western imperialism was Cuba and Haiti. And Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso. and Emil Cabral of Cape Verde, Patrice Lumumba, Samora Machel. Names that you should know. African martyrs who put their ultimate lives on the line to destroy Western imperialism. You have never seen a foreign country step foot on American soil and tell them how to run their government. But America is on cross seas in everybody else's country telling them who their leader should be. You have to be insane to support shit like that. You have to be sick to support shit like that. You have to be sick to support America in Africa. Why is America in Africa? But there are people still being murdered by extremist CIA groups. Why are you there? Why are you there, America? Why is America in Africa? What's your purpose? Nothing has changed in Africa. Why is America on the continent of Africa? Nothing has changed. Nothing. Why are you there? That is the number one thing you Africans should be questioning. Why is America on our continent and nothing changes? Nothing. Now, the only thing that happens while America is around is conflict, proxy wars, death, famine, disease, ignorance. Like I said, my truth, my religion is truth. My spirituality is liberation. Period. I don't take no sides. I take the truth side. I take the liberation side. Last but not least, before I get off here, y'all, because I'm over talking. Last but not least, nuclear power. Write that down. Nuclear power. Why am I talking about nuclear power? This is the home run. This is the PowerPoint on why no African, no oppressed people, no black people should be siding or aligning or supporting Western imperialism. This is the PowerPoint. This is the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is this. Why don't no African nation have nuclear weapons? You heard what I said. Why don't no African nation on the continent of Africa have nuclear weapons, nuclear power? But the four Western imperialist powers all have nuclear weapons and nuclear power. But they go into other countries and tell other countries, you can't have no nuclear weapon. How can another foreign sovereign government tell another foreign sovereign government they can't have nuclear weapons? That's dictatorship. That's imperialism. No African country has a nuclear weapon. South Africa started to develop a nuclear program and then dismantled it when the United States of America and the Western imperialism threatened them. They threatened South Africa. South Africa dismantled their whole nuclear program. South Africa was about to have one of the biggest nuclear weapon programs in Africa. They dismantled it. Why? How can America have a nuclear power? How can Britain have nuclear power? How can Iran have nuclear power? How can Saudi Arabia have nuclear power? But Africans can't have nuclear power. You are sitting ducks. They can blow your whole country off the map. But you don't have no missile capabilities in Africa. You don't have no self-defense capabilities in African countries. You can't even defend yourself from a nuclear attack Africans. And y'all wonder why the Arabs go crazy. The Arabs go crazy because the Arabs are smarter than Africans. The Arabs see that shit as, no, you're not going to have no nuclear weapon, and I can't have a nuclear weapon. Iran looking at America like they crazy. You can have a nuclear weapon, but I can't have a nuclear weapon. You're insane. Only an insane nation, an insane man will sit back and let another country tell them what they can't have. You are insane. Why don't no African countries have a military army of the size and the type, capabilities, technology of the Western powers? Africa doesn't have an army. Africa has the poorest military factions on earth. Technologically, Africa has the poorest army on earth. The white man can destroy Africa tomorrow. Africa can be blown off the map tomorrow. You don't have no nuclear weapons. None. How does the country with the most resources have no technological nuclear power? How? You are slaves. Africa is slaves to U.S. imperialism because they tell you you can't have no nuclear power. You can't have no missile defense system. You people don't know how to operate an army. You black niggas can't control no army. You can't have no army, niggas. You niggas can't have no army. That's what America tells Africa. You can't have nuclear weapons, niggas. We control you niggas. Come on, use your common sense, Africans. You don't have no self-defense mechanism to nuclear destruction. You don't have no nuclear capabilities at all. What does that tell you about your continent and your nations? That's the number one PowerPoint. The reason why no African should be supporting no Western country. No African should be supporting America. No African should be supporting Israel. No Africans should be supporting Britain. No Africans should not be supporting Saudi Arabia until y'all get a nuclear program, a nuclear missile, technological advices, military, arms, defense technology. Until Africa gets that, you shouldn't be supporting no Western imperialism. None. None. So when you see any African, before I get off this live, if you see any black man, woman, child, African, getting excited about Western countries, Western imperialist powers, you look at that nigga and you look at that nigga like he insane. That's my best advice to you. Use Africans. Use your common sense, Africans. Use your logical mind, Africans. Look around at your historical material realm. Look at your reality, Africans. Before I get off here, Africans, look at everything you can touch, see, hear. Focus. Touch, see, hear. Focus scientifically on your material struggle and material world. Look around. If that shit ain't adding up, if it ain't adding up, touch, see, hear, don't fuck with it. If it's not in the favor of African people, don't fuck with it. Don't fuck with it. Y'all got minds. We come from the most ancient people on this planet. We are the oldest people on this planet. Y'all got common sense. You got logics. We are the most. Everything you see in existence, we created that shit. You got common sense. You got logics. Now, use that common sense logics and diagnose the global struggle, the international and national struggle of African people. Analyze it, diagnose it, teach it to your communities, teach it to your villages, teach it to your kids. Why don't Africa have nuclear power? Why don't Africa have a national army, navy, technological self-defense against Western imperialism? Why? If you don't like how I'm talking, get off my live. I usually don't pay attention to comments, but if you don't like what I'm saying on my live, get off it. I'll give you the attention that you want. Get off my shit, brother. And that's just being nice. See, he about to get blocked because he ignorant. Don't worry, you getting blocked as soon as I get off here. Don't worry about it. On that note, one last thing that I would advise to y'all. Please get my elder comrade's book, We Are Our Own Liberators by Jalil Muta King, New African Political Prisoner of War. This book will never ever get old. This book is a manual to develop your political social consciousness internationally and nationally. Get this book, We Are Our Own Liberators by Jalil Muta King. And the most important section that I want you to understand and to read when you get this book is called The National and International Struggle Toward a New Global Revolutionary Pan-African Strategy. One of the most brilliant writings ever, man. One of the most brilliant writings ever to develop your political social consciousness, new African people. Please get this book. We are our own liberators, people. We are our own liberators, man. I'm going to sign off on that note. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. Stand up, struggle forward, free the land, free the people, and stay away from ignorant niggas like Mitchell Dunn. Free the land by any means necessary. Haki Shakur. Free Matulu. Please go to the Matulu link in my bios on Instagram and on my Facebook page. Please donate to Matulu. Matulu is suffering from bone marrow cancer. He needs all the funding that he can get right now. And please support the documentary. All you got to do is give at least $5. Donate $5 to the link. $5, I do believe, is the lowest you can donate to Matulu. Donate to the documentary so we can strategically get Matulu released this year. He goes up for parole this year, 2020. So we need all the support, all the help we can get, donations, anything that you can do. A simple, just share it. Just share the Matulu fundraiser link with your Facebook family, your Instagram family and friends, your Twitter family and friends, to somebody who might want to donate. Because you never know who just needs to see this information that might want to help Matulu out. So please donate to Matulu if you can. $5. $5. And I'm out, y'all. Free the land.